Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another coffee tasting. My name is Aaron Taylor, and I'm going to be your host today. Today, we are tasting the Starbucks Caffe Verona. This is the highlighted coffee of the month, so that's why we're tasting it this Friday. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the coffees that are part of the blend of Caffe Verona, and then how it started, and then the evolution that this coffee took in terms of its name, because it is known for three different names settled on Caffe Verona. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So with this coffee, this is going to be a multi-region coffee. So normally on this channel we do small lot coffees, but we will explore other types of coffees as we go through our journey. With Caffe Verona, we're going to get a mixture of Latin American coffees and a mixture of Southeast Asia or Indonesian coffees. So with those Indonesian coffees, we're going to get a lot of those bolder flavors. And then with the Latin American blend, it's going to give it some more of those chocolate flavors as well. And so with Caffe Verona, it's going to be the notes are going to be milk chocolate, dark chocolate, with a roasty sweetness. And that roasty sweetness is going to come from the Indonesian coffees, while the those milk chocolate notes and the dark chocolate notes are going to come from the blends of the different Latin American coffees that we have in there. And so with the Caffe Verona, it's a blend of Yukon and Italian roast. And then the interesting thing about the blend of Yukon and Italian roast is the Yukon is a blend of its own, and then the Italian is a blend of its own as well. And so with the Yukon, we have a blend of the Sumatra and Guatemala beans. And then with the Italian roast, it's going to be Guatemala and then Southeast Asia coffee or Indonesian coffee. Not sure exactly which Indonesian coffee is in Italian roast, but we do have a little bit more of that Indonesian coffee in there, so that's going to give us some more of those roasty, earthy notes that we're going to see in there. And with the Yukon and Italian blend, it's going to be 80% Yukon and 20% Italian. Italian is definitely like a way far dark spectrum side, and then the Yukon is going to be a medium roast. So because you got that medium Yukon roast in there, it's going to give it that more mild flavor, and that's what's going to provide us with a lot of those milk chocolate flavors is the Yukon. And then with the Italian roast blend in there, we're going to get a lot of those dark chocolate notes from the Italian. And then we're also going to get a lot of those roasty flavors from the Italian roast as well, because the Italian roast is a very, very dark coffee, and it's roasted for a very long time as well. So its flavor is going to be very pronounced in terms of darkness and that roasty flavor. And so when you mix the Yukon blend, which has the lighter roast, and then the Italian roast, which has the darker roast, you're going to end up somewhere in the middle between the two. So it's this particular blend, the Caffe Verona, isn't nearly as bold as the Italian roast, but it is still a very, very bold cup of coffee with strong chocolate notes. So that's why this coffee is perfect for pairing with chocolate, like a brownie. And then it's even really good pairing with like a dinner, because sometimes the overwhelming chocolate notes can be bitter if you don't have that light sweetness that you get from the Yukon. So say like on the French press, we're going to get a lot more of those bitters, and so we're going to get a lot more of those lingering bitter taste from the dark chocolate notes. So if you have something savory, something that helps make your mouth water, something salty, like maybe even like a steak and mashed potatoes with Caffe Verona would be really good, because the saltiness in the mashed potatoes and the steak will kind of help die down that bitterness in the coffee. And that's why the Caffe Verona is considered like a dinner party coffee. It's really good to pair with like savory items, just because of that bitterness, and that the savory items will help carry that bitterness away, and you're going to taste a little bit more of those chocolates because that bitterness is being pulled away from your mouth. So when I drink coffee, for those of you guys who have visited my live streams, you all know that I like a medium roast. So this roast I'm not a big fan of, but we are going to explore it anyways, and we're going to learn. I am going to learn which preferred brew I like on brew preference I like on this coffee, because with the French press, I mean, I'm gonna guess right now I'm not gonna like the French press very much because it's gonna have some very dark, strong flavors, and I'm gonna like the pour over much more. But who knows? With the French press, we might get a lot more of those dark chocolate flavors, and it might not be too bitter, because this, like I said, this coffee isn't nearly as bitter as Italian roast, and Italian roast is too dark for my flavor, so I kind of tend to stay away from the Italian roast. But the Italian roast is a part of the Caffe Verona, but like I said, it is being dyed down with the Yukon blend, which is a lighter roast. And so a little bit about the Yukon blend. The Yukon blend is very interesting because of its name. It's interesting because you hear Yukon blend and you think, oh, this coffee is grown in North America, and no, actually, it's just named after the Yukon, and so the growers and the roasters really love the Yukon, and so they dedicated the name of this particular blend of coffee and named it after the Yukon. So that's where the name comes from. It's not actually grown in the Yukon. It's just a tribute to the land and the beauty that the Yukon is. And so that's a little bit of history about the Yukon blend. Maybe we'll explore the Yukon in depth in the future if you guys would like to. And for those of you guys who are joining the live stream for the first time, that go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button down below. That would be super awesome to support this channel. And if you guys are returning and you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, if you go ahead and hit that button, that'd be super awesome. That way I can continue to do these videos in the future and maybe even expand on these videos even more. So that would be greatly appreciated, guys. Thank you so much. All right. So we're gonna start the coffee tasting off with the coffee press. So we're gonna go the more intense coffee first, and then we're going to go with the lighter roast, see how it impacts the flavor, and see how much easier it makes to drink the Caffe Verona when you go from the darker version to the lighter version. And then sometimes I'm in the opposite. I like it the opposite way, where I like the French press more, but that depends on the level of acidity of the coffee or how floral the coffee is. And so if it's very floral, I might go for the French press over the pour over, because the French press will hide some of those floral flavors by bringing forward some of those bitters. Ooh, okay. So with the French press, I'm immediately smelling that chocolate with the roasty sweetness. That's like immediate smell that I'm getting right now. It smells really good. It smells like chocolate. Wow. Okay. So with the French press, immediately I'm getting like hit with that roasty sweetness. I'm getting like a roasty flavor on the center of my tongue, and then like a bright sweetness on the sides. It's almost like some of the acidity from the Latin American coffees coming through. Not nearly as dark as I was expecting it to be. It's still fairly dark. Got like that strong bitter bite, and then it's followed by a bright roasty acidity. I've got like almost like a roasting woodsy flavor towards the back of my tongue. Not my favorite cup of coffee, but it will do, obviously. That's a really, really strong cup of coffee. Um, yeah, so like right now my mouth is being overwhelmed with like the leftover acidity notes. It's just impacting the sides of my tongue back here. And then I've got like that strong, bitter, lingering flavor in the center of my tongue. So with the lingeringness on the sides of my tongue and the center of my tongue, this is a very, very full-bodied cup of coffee. When you let it wash over your mouth, all palates of your tongue are pretty much being impacted, not just certain parts. And then other parts aren't dominating over the other. So this is like a very balanced dark roast. And so now we're going to try it on the pour over. So with the pour over, we're going to see a little bit less of that roastiness come through, and then more of those, I'm guessing more of those chocolate notes, but we'll see, because each coffee is different. Interesting. Okay, so with the Verona on the pour over, it actually had the opposite effect of what I was thinking it would have. So literally right now, the only flavor I'm getting right now is that roastiness. The roast, like almost like very reminiscent of espresso. It literally tastes like a shot of espresso. That's what Caffe Verona is. So if anyone likes like espresso flavored coffee or that very, very bold bitter flavor, this is going to be the cup for you because it's got that strong flavor. And it's interesting because the chocolate kind of takes a back seat on the pour over, and it lets that roasty espresso flavor kind of take the wheel. And I thought I would like the pour over more versus the French press, but I actually like the French press more because I'm not a big fan of that bright roasty flavor, and I'm looking more for those chocolate bitters. Because with this one, I'm getting very, very little bitters in the center of my tongue, and I'm just getting a whole lot of bright roasty flavors on the sides of my tongue. And then after I let my palate clear, that's all I'm tasting is that bright acidity of the roasty flavor on the sides of my tongue. And to me, that's not very pleasant. That's not my favorite flavor attributes in coffee. So I'm actually going to continue to drink the French press because we're getting more of those chocolate notes in the French press, and the chocolate notes help balance with that roasty flavor, so that roastiness isn't overwhelming your palate, and so that's important. And if the roasty flavor is what you're looking for, like I said, if you're an espresso drinker and you really like to get like a doppio espresso as your coffee, but you want a little bit more like liquid, Caffe Verona pour over is the way to go because it literally tastes like a shot of espresso. On point with a shot of espresso. All right, so Caffe Verona. Its name is inspired by a tradition of love. Obviously, with the Verona, it's named after the city in Italy, Verona, where Romeo and Juliet is placated in the Shakespeare play. So that's where it gets its name. But I have my own kind of like little story to tell about why I think Caffe Verona or Verona and the fact that they wanted to attribute it to love. So my story is all about how coffee traveled to different parts of the world. So a long time ago, coffee was only available to the royals and the people who grew it, and then even the people who grew it didn't really get to drink their coffee. That was controlled by the royals. The royals used it as a trading commodity and a currency, and so the British and the Arab royals would use this as a trading currency because it was so rare and so sought upon. And so the way it traveled from Africa to South America is an interesting story, because this is where I think that the Caffe Verona kind of gets its inspired name, is from this story. And then if it's not inspired by the story, for me, this is where the inspiration comes from. Um, and so there was a Brazilian colonel who was on a diplomatic mission with the royals with the Arabs, and he actually had um, he had an affair with one of the people in the royal. I'm not sure if it was a servant or a royal herself, but when he departed to go back to Brazil, she gave him a bouquet, and in the bouquet was a unroasted coffee cherry or a coffee bean. And so he was able to take this unroasted coffee bean and then cultivate it in Latin America. And so that is the story of how coffee moved from Africa and that region of the world to Latin America, and then it blew up in cultivation in South America and made it widely available for the common people. And so, I mean, in a world today, it would be hard to keep trade commodities like that within a tight circle of royals, um, because we live in such a small world now with internet and being able to trade things across seas so much more easier. Um, that's it's much easier to share things with the world. So keeping coffee within a royal bloodline or a circle of people is much harder than it was before. But because of this event, coffee spread to the rest of the world much sooner than it would have if we would have had to wait for the revolution of transportation, where we were able to transport goods across vast distances easily like we do now. And so I think that's what's important about the Caffe Verona, is really that like what love has, how it has impacted the coffee culture, and the consequences of sharing something with people that isn't normally being shared with. Like with coffee was held amongst just only the richest of people, and so the fact that everyone gets to experience a cup of coffee and then we get to learn a little bit about its rich culture is important. And thanks to the affair that happened between the Brazilian colonel and the royal, we are able to experience a coffee on a level that we are experiencing today. Because if we had to have waited and for the coffee to expand to the rest of the parts of the world, coffee probably wouldn't be as refined as it is today. Because coffee culture is a lot younger than you think it is. I was surprised when I found out how young coffee is, in terms of its history and when we first discovered it. And for an example, the first coffee filter was invented in 1909 by a German housewife. And to put that in perspective, we've only had a paper coffee filter for about 112 years. So any person who might have like a great grandmother, their great grandmother might have lived in an era where you used cloth filters or no filter and you percolated your coffee. And so we've only been paper filtering our coffee for a little over 100 years, and then within those 100 years we've refined the brewing process with like the Chemex and other brewing processes to kind of like get different amounts of oils and a different amount of sediment. So a lot of the coffee innovations that we've had have happened in the past 100 years. And everything before that is all about coffee expanding to the different parts of the world from when it used to be secluded and held within an inner circle. So that's my story for today about coffee culture and its history and why Caffe Verona is named the coffee of love. Thank you guys for joining me in another coffee tasting. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's Caffe Verona, where we learned a little bit about coffee history. If you guys enjoyed the coffee tasting, go ahead and click on the video down below. That's going to give you a link to all my coffee tastings. And the video up here is just a video that YouTube thinks that you might like to watch. Have a great day, you guys. Happy New Year.